All right, so in this poll, we're going to look at the state of your firm's content right now. And again, this is an anonymous poll, so you don't have to be embarrassed to admit what the state of your content is. No one will see you specifically.
The great thing is if you've got a lot of those boring tax law or legal articles floating around out there, we can still help. There is hope for those pieces. They can be turned around and become magical content marketing for you.
Right. We'll address that in part of our next steps. All right, I'm giving you about 15 more seconds to vote if you haven't voted yet. All right, let's see the results. This one doesn't have as clear a winner as the last poll. All right, so I'm not surprised actually to see that the top one is that people create what they want and it's not unified. I think that's the state in a lot of firms today. And also our second place winner here, marketing is creating content but no one's using it, which is very sad. So we'll talk a little bit about how to explain to people why they should be using your great content. And also, you know, on the other three here that are neck and neck, very little content created. That's actually not as big of a problem as you might think. And for the people who answered that marketing is creating content and people are using it, or you have a unified strategy, that's pretty exciting. So kudos to those firms. All right.
And feel free to share some examples in the chat area, and we can share those with the rest of the group too.
All right, so next.
Regardless of where you're at in the content marketing cycle, keep in mind that it is a process. Like any marketing strategy, it's ongoing and it's a process. And we have developed what we believe are the 4 primary steps of the ongoing content marketing cycle. And you could jump into any one of these steps, but we're gonna take them one at a time, just to give you an idea of how it will work in your firm. Step 1 would be to create and manage the content. Are you consistently creating it and leveraging it in different ways? Number 2, attract and listen. Are you choosing the right content channels and audiences? And are you listening attentively to them as well as sharing content? Number 3, woo and interact. We love the word woo around here. Are you nurturing? Are you nurturing those leads and interacting with them? Are you conversing with your audience online and in person? And then number 4, are you moving them to action? And then are you measuring your results at the same time? And as you measure those results, are you adjusting your tactics to fit the best results that you're receiving? Now we're going to break down each step for you, but let me give you a quick example of how this is working within an actual firm. We are currently working with the Bailey Group. Maybe some of you have heard of them. They're in Minneapolis. They consult with organizations on how to create a high-performance culture through strategies for leaders, managers, and employees. So as you can see on this slide, this is their website. It's pulled up onto their blog. And this particular blog post offered a quiz to readers to learn more about themselves on their leadership mastery journey. And to the right, you can see that they have a sign up for the Bailey Group blog as well as the Bailey Group newsletter. Well, every 4 months, the Bailey Group leaders get together and they brainstorm client pains and issues and trends that they're seeing. Those ideas become content for their blog, their newsletter, speaking, articles, and PR strategies. So they're taking a few primary ideas and they're developing them for different channels to market as content. and then they maximize that information through their content marketing strategy. So on the next slide, you can kind of see how this breaks down. So they publish their newsletter based on the ideas generated, and then they've kind of listened and gotten an idea of pains and who they want to attract for these ideas. Once people subscribe and interact with them, they get additional strategic emails or invitations to events and speaking, and then those touches lead to the coffee meetings and the sales meetings and the interaction that the Bailey Group is looking for. The content leads to those meetings because they're asking people to do something with the content. Take a quiz, read similar articles, and then they're measuring response through their web analytics, their comments, and number of new subscribers. Now the good news, after working with them for the past year or two, is that they are growing tremendously. Now that you're excited about this, how about another example of content marketing? Rachel, you have a comment?
No, I was going to set up the example because we scoured the world for a dramatic example that would really hit home for how content marketing works. And here's what we came up with.
You're in one now.
You are in a content cycle as we speak. This is a mocked-up picture of us doing the webinar, but we look almost exactly like this.
Exactly. We're in an office. Yeah,
it's
got
true.
a computer in front of us.
So, we wanted to do this example because it's one that actually started with what we're calling the second stage, attract and listen. We pay attention to various social media channels, and we meet with our clients and prospects in person. And over the last few months, we've been hearing more and more questions about content marketing. So we actually bumped a different webinar from this time slot.
We did. We were supposed to do this in December. So
right. We moved it up to May and created this webinar. So that would be stage one, create some content. And then we're wooing and interacting with you. I know you can feel the warmth through the phone or headset.
You want to have coffee with us now.
You
hang out.
But we have a chance to interact. You can ask us questions throughout the webinar. And at the end, you'll see our email addresses so that you can ask us questions after the webinar. And that's also part of stage 4, move to action and measure. So we can measure right now. I can actually look at the list of attendees on the webinar, and I can see how many of you are multitasking me. Only about 6 of you. So I'm measuring as we're speaking. And then as you leave the webinar, you'll also see a survey for you to fill out to let us know how we did on this webinar, what you're interested in getting more information about, all of that. So that's part of our measurement as well. So that's our content cycle that you're in with us right now. All right. We're going to now go through those stages one at a time and give you some specific tips so that you can pick, you can kind of determine, are you strong in a couple of these, are you weak in a couple, or do you want to revisit all of them as part of putting together a unified strategy? So obviously, I'm going to start with stage 1, creating and managing content. And again, to remind you that all of these are cycling at the same time. So you may already be creating a lot of good content, and it's more a matter of managing it. Or you may not know what content to create yet, in which case you'll start with stage 2. But for the sake of a linear webinar, we're going to start with stage 1.
And we couldn't bring you into the matrix to do this in 3D, so
someday we'll have the technology. And when we do, I'll be leading that one. All right. So here's my good news. It is possible to get better results even with less content than you're creating right now.
Rachel, you're blowing my mind. What are you talking about? Less work?
Well, not for you and I.
Oh, okay.
But for everyone on the call. So yes, you can actually, and how do you do that? By taking the content you're already creating and really making sure that it is client-centric. I know a lot of you said that you've already got people sort of creating their own individual content, and since we work with a lot of subject matter experts, we know that accountants and attorneys and engineers, they love to talk about their knowledge. And you don't necessarily want to shut them down if they're creating content for you.
Exactly.
But putting a lead on their content that shows that you understand your client's pains, that you're standing in your client's shoes, that's a way to take the existing content and make it work for you in a way that's better. And we also, so that helps drive the loyalty feature. And on the value side, take some of the existing content and make sure that it really is clear about your differentiating value. So those two things, loyalty and value, can help you get better results even with less content. All right, and then I have another slide for maximizing content, turning average content into great content. This is still my favorite example of great content. You can see my breakfast and hamburger over there, which is not what I ate today, just so you know. That's actually from the book Made to Stick, and it's an example where they were trying to demonstrate how fatty movie popcorn used to be when they made it in coconut oil. And so instead of just saying it has so-and-so many grams of fat, they actually laid out at the press conference a table full of fatty food and a bucket of theater popcorn to demonstrate that the bucket of popcorn had as much fat as 3 meals of fatty foods. And for a lot of you, you need to bring that understanding to your subject matter experts. Like Christine was talking about earlier in the call, okay, the tax code changed, the laws changed, and we can report on that, but we really need to translate it into what does it mean, and what's a really concrete example.
What's a story you can share? What's a detail? What's a client case study to help people understand? What are some tips? Some surprising elements about the issue that people need to know about so that your clients, customers are really feeling like, wow, you understand my industry. You really get what's going on here. Because as Rachel was telling me yesterday, she said that she had a great story about her professor who talked about how to create great content. Yes. You have to imagine, Rachel,
right.
You have to imagine
that the person who's reading your content is in the middle of a busy office. They're being interrupted. Their phone's ringing. They've got one eye on the Twitter feeds. And despite all of that, they have to be able to quickly get the key takeaways from your piece of content. So it's got to be that clear and that memorable.
And believe me, I was doing that this morning with a lot of activity happening in the office, and I was investigating some laws and was reading some of the articles online, and I actually had to put my headphones in to clear out the white noise so I could understand what I was reading. So you don't want your articles and your speaking engagements to feel like that. You want it to feel like, you know, people are just feeling very taken care of and supported.
And you don't have to do all 6 of these points. You could do 2 or 3 and you'll still turn average content into great content. Another example for this is if you've ever seen David Allen of Getting Things Done. He does a newsletter that comes out every couple months, not very often, but it's incredibly authentic. It's very heartfelt. So he really hits on that authentic. He usually has a story in the example he's giving, and the emotion of it is just genuineness. So when I say emotional, it doesn't have to be over the top, but you want to get kind of the core values of your firm communicating in these pieces of content.
Sometimes it helps also to think of your headline first, that nugget of information that you want to share with people. What's your headline, what's the name of your speech, and that really can help you to target it. And sometimes I'll even go out to a site like Huffington Post and just look at how they write their headlines to really attract and engage their audiences.
Yes, I'm going to pop us to the next slide, but we're going to talk about headlines for another second. So because we also, we do have a client who will compose her headlines while standing in the grocery store line and looking at the covers of like Us and Cosmo to see what are some of the really ways that people get attention and capture attention. And obviously if you're looking at Cosmo, you need to tone it down, but it can be a good creative starter.
5 steps, 10 creative ways.
Yeah, I was changing and then I just printed out, but Don also wants me to email it. So
okay, hang on. I have another half an hour of the webinar.
Just to mute the staff members.
Like 5 minutes or so.
Now you're seeing the inner workings of our office because apparently we can hear Christy.
I think we took care of it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for bearing with us. I feel like we had a commercial there. It's like we're on the radio. All right.
And after the break. Thank you. We're back.
We're back. All right. So when you're creating content, like I said, know your key differentiators, know your strengths. So leverage what you're already creating, leverage what you're already good at. We already said all of this. So this slide is just your reminder slide. And the big deal on this is the 4th point, which is that you can curate your content. Hang on one second. Okay, we're going to go handle that, the sound issue. But meanwhile, I will tell you all about curating content. So curating content is what happens when, and you'll see an example here from Heidi Cohen on Twitter, which does not mean that you have to use Twitter. This can be equally true from your LinkedIn company page, LinkedIn personal profile, or your company's Facebook page. And you can actually even do it on a blog. So when you're curating content, it just means that you're taking existing content, you're adding value to it, and you're reposting it. So I put the example up here from Heidi because the name of it, the new guide to link building, that's the name of the article, but she's added the words bookmark this. And on Twitter, you can't add much more. And because she's a social media expert that I follow and I like, this tells me that this is a pretty important article. She doesn't usually say something that strong about it. So if you're regularly posting information, maybe about your key industries, you want to make sure you're adding value when you pass along articles. And doing that can actually cause something that we call loyalty transfer, which we took from the fiction author John Locke, not the same John Locke on Lost. He coined the term loyalty transfer, and basically what it means is someone is having a positive experience with a large brand, and they're associating some of that positive experience to you. So for example, if you post an article from CIO or from Forbes or from some large business magazine, and it's a great article, the loyalty and happiness that people feel getting that information, some of it actually transfers to you because you're the one who turned them on to it. So that's a great way to have more content coming out from you without having to create more content.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Another way to save you time and have magical content marketing. And I also wanted to mention this isn't any different than if you were to provide a recommendation to your clients to use another service provider that you like. It's just a way of doing it online. You're forwarding them to an interesting source, and they appreciate you for it.
All right, so that's what we're going to say about stage 1, and moving on to stage 2, attract and listen. Like I said, you can start with this stage. If you're not sure what you want to talk about, listening is a great way to do that. And I'm just going to go here to point number 2, which is the really important part of stage 2. Okay, so important takeaways from 1 was loyalty and value. Number 2 is a big deal, is ideal client. We've got on point here. You don't want to listen to just anyone. You don't want to attract just anyone. I know people say that. Well, who's this? Who do you want to write this for? Everyone? No, that is so not the case. And especially, the reason is now that there's so much internet and so many streams coming across, you have the opportunity to get the attention of a lot of people who will waste your time and money because they're not your ideal client. You see this a lot of times. I see it in social media when attorneys or accountants put themselves out on channels that are best suited for solo practitioners, and they get the kinds of clients who are not ideal for their firm. So I really encourage you to think through who are our best clients. What are they reading and watching? Where are they and what are they doing?
Who are their influencers? That's really important to know.
Yeah. And then you can research keywords and popular topics. You can find out what are they saying, what are their pains. And I have an example for this on our next slide. So this is the screenshot from HootSuite this afternoon, very fresh. So I use HootSuite to monitor Twitter and some other social streams. There are a lot of different tools that you can use for this, and you can actually use the Google Analytics, the AdWords tool. So if you just type Google AdWords tool into Google, you'll get a tool that will show you how to find some key phrases. But then once you find phrases, you can either just search for them, search on Google, search in the Google News stream and see what's showing up in newspapers and magazines online. You can search in LinkedIn, you can search in Twitter. Facebook doesn't have a great search functionality yet, unfortunately. But I here have it programmed so that my HootSuite pulls up everyone who's talking about the phrase content marketing. So I know what are the hot articles, what are people discussing, and it helps me keep really current. And I may not choose to participate. I might not retweet or reply to any of these people, but I do often use this stream and these articles to fuel what I talk about. Like, for example, when I'm doing a content marketing webinar.
Yeah.
All right, so those are really the steps of attract and listen. And then, this attract and listen stage is still, it's kind of the cold marketing stage as opposed to the warm, where you're doing your warm prospecting. This is really where you're out there trying to meet prospects who don't know that much about you, maybe have never heard about you before. So we wanted to talk about some of the top content tactics that people are using to attract the colder leads. And this is from the B2B Content Marketing 2012 Benchmark Budgets and Trends reports from the Content Marketing Institute, which we're very fond of as a resource.
Great resource.
So, what are people using? Article postings, case studies, videos, white papers, webinars, and even microsites, which are kind of mini websites, either separate from or inside your existing website. And we wanted to put these examples up in part so you can see the breadth of what people are doing. And also, I want to reiterate, when we talked about work to your strengths a little bit earlier, pick the ones that are easiest for you. You don't have to do all of these. If you're already producing, say, articles and case studies, or maybe you're already doing webinars, start with what you're already doing and make the content more customer-focused, more value-driven. Start there. Don't think you have to suddenly do a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, you can just maximize, definitely.
Now, we did want to do an example, and I have a very cute example. So this is from a technology firm that uses a lot of web video. Video is a popular and fun way to get some faces out there on your website for people to interact with. And particularly, you can see in this example, so this is Kim Albee, the CEO of Genu, who's one of our clients and does a lot of, she does video not only for herself but for her clients. And she builds calls to action into the ends of her video, which is wonderful. And here you can see, she's demonstrating her software, but you're also getting a sense of the internal values of the firm. So she's a small company competing against larger companies. And so that's why the imagery of her scooter is particularly charming. It gives you that sense of, her product is nimble, it can compete, it's a lower price point, so it's the frugal, nimble competitor, and that's what you get when you see a scooter, which also happens to be in her branded color. So I thought that was a particularly fun example. But she uses a lot of video to give people an idea of what the software can do, and also because it's so easy to pull someone into maybe a 2 or 3 minute video, which then causes them to spend more time on your website, which is better for search engines as well.
And you'll find that the smaller, nimbler companies, younger professionals, they've become very visual. They're all about YouTube. They're all about photos on Facebook. So visual is part of your content marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Step 3, woo and interact. Another phrase might be lead, nurture, and network. But we like to mix it up here at Ingenuity, so we went with woo and interact. So I'm going to share with you some additional top content marketing tactics that firms are using to woo leads, to interact with them, to get them to respond. Social media, obviously, the top hit here, and the blogs. And it's really mostly because of the analytics that are available on social media, the ability to see that people are sharing, that they're commenting. Same with blogs, having that ability to see comments and respond back. There's a lot of interaction available through that. With e-newsletters, you've got some calls to action you can create to get people to come to your website after reading the newsletter. And then, of course, you've got your in-person events where you're able to actually see people in person, real time, and learn about them a little bit more. And as I mentioned, Facebook and YouTube is great because you can show and tell rather than explain things through words. It's a quick way for people to interact with you and get to know a little bit more about your personality. It's a warmer feel.
And I want to just interject here. We want to really show you the landscape and give you a lot of options. But when we start out with a content marketing strategy for a firm that hasn't had one before, we pick maybe 2, maximum 3 types of content over maybe 2 channels. Unless they're a firm that's got some more expertise than that, you don't want to try to start to do everything. You want to get good at a couple of things. So pick the ones that speak to you and the ones that are where your audience is.
So the main difference between just throwing content out there and great content marketing, just to remind you, is answering that most powerful question. What do you want people to do next? Well, often you want them to come back to your place, to your website. Your website. Read bios and articles and learn more about you, and then call you. So I'll give you an example here of Woo and Interact. Fried Maxick is a CPA firm out in New York, and they've been consistently using social media to interact and woo with their audiences. Their marketing director, after all of these efforts the last few years, was actually named one of the top influential people in marketing because of the business he's generating through social media. So here's an example of their social media activity on LinkedIn. They are curating the information that they're putting out there for people. Kind of curating their own information, at least translating what it means, why it's important for people to look at it, and then you can see that there are options for them to see who liked it, who commented on it, and then they'll be able to follow up with those people to see what other needs they might be able to help them with. But he didn't get the business right away. You know, this has been a consistent effort at Fried Maxick for the last, I would say, 3 years at least. And it takes about 14 touches at this point for people to see and interact with you before they're going to pull the trigger and be ready to buy. Wooing is emotional. It's about solving their pains. It's about focusing on what's important with them, and it's a gift. Now, everybody knows that if you're trying to, work on a relationship, that gifts are always nice. They always boost the good feelings. They increase loyalty. And the call to action can be really subtle. It can just be like, I really value you. I think you're important to me. Here's something I want to share with you. So your name stays top of mind. And when they do have that need, and are ready to buy, they'll think of you. Now we want to get to the most important step in the content marketing strategy, and that is move and measure. Move people to act and then measure the results. This is how you know that your content marketing strategy is working. Your audience is sharing the content, they're commenting on it, they're requesting more information, they're subscribing. But you don't know this unless you're having a way to measure the responses. So in order to move people to act, always give them something to do next and plan what you'll do next. That's an important part of this move and measure step. Like the Bailey Group, like Fried Maxick, like Janu, the examples we've shown you. And here's another example. So, here is an accounting firm website. Linquist is an accounting firm out in San Francisco, and one of their areas is nonprofits. And many of you have probably created your websites now to have more of a niche focus, and so you'll have some pages that are focused on your niches, and you'll have some important information there for people to learn about. So I wanted to point out a few things that we've done with the Linquist site to provide, great basic information on the service. But then, in addition to that, because this is similar to many websites you see out there, there's a call to action with a specific person to call. It provides a link to the person's bio, and it provides links to other client areas right on the page. It's very visible. Now, the next step in maximizing this for more content marketing strategy, if the firm chooses to do so, is to add articles and news related to this client area right on the page for people to read. Something they could download or ask a question about. You could have a lead capture form on this page that says, ask Jim a question. So those are some additional things that you can do once your website is up and it's launched and it's going. You can start adding these additional pieces. If you're speaking about a nonprofit issue, you can invite people to get more information from your website service page. That's another tactic to move them to action once they've heard you speak. Then you can track the web traffic following the webinar or speech. You can see if the web traffic went up on this particular page after you've invited them to learn more. So point to your web page, point to a specific piece of bonus content that's on your website. and then you'll have that strategy that you can measure after the event has taken place.
And we wanted to show you some of the stats for how firms are measuring results. Increased web traffic, including traffic to specific pages. Or, you know, I assume most of you are running Google Analytics on your website, so you can see where the traffic is coming from. I run a lot of reports now, reporting on just these kind of measurements, and in some of them you'll see things like, for example, traffic coming from Facebook doubled over a 6-month time period. You know, you can see, okay, before we started this, we could regularly get over a few months period, we'd get 60 people coming from Facebook, and now we're getting 130. So traffic and where that traffic is coming from and which pages on your site they're looking at, all of that is visible through Google Analytics. So it's a powerful tool.
And firms are talking a lot more about return on objective over return on investment in their marketing tactics, and makes it a little bit easier for you in the marketing area to track and measure if you set up some particular objectives for getting more people to move to action and to do something next once they've seen your content.
And you know, the next two, lead quality, accepted leads, and direct sales, I mean, there are some very spectacular ways to track these in terms of software platforms that do lead capture and lead nurturing. We rashly assumed that that wasn't in your budget for this year. So that's why we're giving you advice that doesn't include that. But if you are interested in those kinds of platforms, we have a couple that we think are pretty good that you can use to really track and nurture leads. But assuming that you don't have that, you know, just paying attention to and building into the process where you're talking with prospects, asking them, you know, where did you first hear about us? How did you stay in touch with us? Because sometimes they'll share that information. That also helps you understand which channels your best prospects and clients are coming from. Don't discount qualitative feedback from customers. When you hear that someone puts, you know, oh, I loved this article, oh, I shared this.
Oh, I just saw some news on your Facebook page.
Right. And the other piece of this, again, that I've been doing a lot in my reporting, not just the qualitative feedback from customers, but now platforms like Facebook, like HootSuite, will show you what your top pieces of content are. So you can go into your Facebook Insights, and it will show you in incredibly detailed statistics how many people saw a particular post, how many people shared it, what the virality was, and so on.
Virality?
Virality. I've been thinking I want to start talking about bacteriology because I'm getting sick of the word viral, but that's what they call the metric.
How many went, like how far it went viral?
Exactly. How many people shared it and reshared it. So you can get all those stats, which is great. And my favorite thing is then that kind of leads back into your stage 2, the attract and listen stage. It helps you determine which channels are the most valuable for you and which topics are bringing in the best response, which takes the burden off you to think of, well, what are we going to cover in the next newsletter? Well, I don't know, these 2 articles we posted on Facebook got a ton of traffic, or you know, this one article we posted on LinkedIn has had a tremendous engagement rating. So let's do that topic.
And the other way that this ties into lead generation and lead nurturing is that you can take that information and share it in your sales meetings. So if you know that a particular industry topic is hot right now with your audiences, then your salespeople can go to that meeting and say, you know, I understand that right now in your industry this topic is really important, and so we wanted to ask you more about that. So it definitely can tie into the business development, which, you know, in the next couple slides here, we're going to talk about what happens if you don't track and listen, but also how this integrates into your marketing plan that you've already created. So,
yes, and lastly, SEO ranking. Even if you're not getting cold leads from search engines, one of the cool things now that Google is paying more attention to the time that people spend on your site and the number of pages they look at, if you're getting better SEO, it probably means that people are spending more time on your site, which tends to lead them to follow the calls to action and convert themselves to hot prospects and then clients.
Yes, opt in. They want to opt in with you.
Yes, and then now the next slide really speaks for itself, so I'll just let you have a moment with it.
No!
That is better as a sound effect. All right.
I had to add that.
And we will have the PowerPoint and the recording available in a day or two. So if you need to post the slide somewhere in your cubicle, it will be there for you.
And if you need me to say no, then you can record that too.
Exactly.
So just, our points about, what happens if you don't track and listen, it gets you back to the boring, useless, and misplaced FUI, in the past. And you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste the professional's time in the firm. So let's definitely add that fourth piece to our content marketing strategy. And you only have so much time. Rachel's brought up this slide, which I think is a good example of how this integrates into your marketing strategy. Less content, leveraged better, and integrated with your marketing plan.
And you can see here, what we really like about this kind of spreadsheet is it's very clear, not only what tactic and who's responsible. I mean, everyone kind of has that somewhere. But what's the goal of that specific piece? And then filling in what results we got from it.
Right, and I wanted to add that goal and results, just giving you an example of how you could establish your objectives and then keep track of them. And there are different ways to set up your objectives, as it says here on the newsletter. And these are just made up examples. I don't even know what WEG is. I just made it up. The summer newsletter. So you've got your summer newsletter for your international business clients, on business travel and taxes. What you really want them to do is to click on your business travel questionnaire that's on your website. That's how you've set up your strategy for measuring your content marketing effectiveness. And then you track your results. You've got 10 people who wanted to find out more about the questionnaire. They asked questions. They sent you an email. That one was really effective because business travel was a hot topic, how to avoid taxation, for your business travelers. And then, speaking engagements, things you can do with your LinkedIn company page to get more interaction. So as you can see it ties into some of the marketing tactics you're probably already doing. And we just have some additional examples here. So, if you've got a company newsletter, should definitely have some call to action statements, some invitations to client events included in the newsletter. E-blast, offer some type of bonus item from your website or a free webinar. With your social media, definitely, this is the easiest thing to do. As soon as you've created some content, go out to your social media sites and point people to it. Mm-hmm. And, that ties into your objectives of, increasing the number of followers on your LinkedIn company page or your Facebook page. Create that as an objective. So then that social media channel is going to be more effective for you for increasing your interaction and attraction.
And I just want to add that, when you're already creating content, for example, a lot of people already have a newsletter, you can actually post to your social media channels individually each article in the newsletter, rather than, just, hey, the summer newsletter is out. You can do that one, but then, did you catch this article on X? You can post more than once from a large piece of content like a newsletter.
Exactly. Trade shows, take advantage of those by offering a free report or ebook for anyone who, sends you an email or leaves cards. The holiday cards, it's about creating a warm feeling and loyalty. But you maybe would do something fun like linking them to your New Year's resolutions or your Valentine's wishes on the website, and then that might, spur them to go look at some bios of people they hadn't met yet.
Speaking of content marketing, we put out a newsletter. It says
my gosh, we do?
It says here bi-monthly, but it's more like quarterly because we don't want to overwhelm people with content. And you can get it, you can subscribe to it in a variety of different ways. You can link, you can find it on our website, and then RSS subscribe, follow us on social. And we did, our latest issue is up here. It's 2 Secrets of Highly Successful Lead Nurturing. So there's more information about lead nurturing and some of the content tips that we've talked about in this webinar in that article.
We just happened to write an article about lead nurturing, and now we're doing a webinar on it.
It's crazy.
Go figure.
It's as if we listen to our clients and prospects.
Oh, and we would be remiss if we did not also mention that our next webinar is in July. It's on the latest, greatest online strategies. We're going to have a panel of experts, and actually Freed Maxick is one of our guests on the panel, so you can hear a little bit more about how they've been leveraging their content marketing strategy.
And as promised, here are our emails. Both Christine and I, we do love to get questions, and you can also see our LinkedIn, and we're on a variety of other platforms as well, but you can find all of that information from the Ingenuity website and our LinkedIn profile. Feel free to send us questions. We love to answer them. If there was anything you heard on the webinar that you want more information about, we probably have articles we can point you to. So let us know. We're going to wrap up. There's a little survey at the end of the webinar, so if you don't mind, take a minute and answer that and let us know how we did, because we're actually nuts about doing webinars that provide value. So I hope you found this very valuable today, and if you have ideas about what else would be valuable, we'd love to hear that. Thank you so much for being our audience. I've been watching my metrics, and you all were quite attentive. I'm very happy about that, despite the sunny day outside. So thank you very much for attending, and hopefully we'll get to talk with you again soon.
Have a great day, everyone.